Good morning, Peter Goertz. I'm a psychiatrist. Conflict at work. I've never experienced anything. I'm just playing. Of course, it can happen. It's quite frequent in general. I've heard a lot about that from patients, and that can be drama. I've heard coworkers shouting. So it can be a problem, and unfairness can be a major issue. Do you feel often that you're unfairly treated at work? That can be a real problem for people. And one example, there are different sides to each story in general. I had a lot of conflict with a supervisor many years ago, and to the point he would get so angry, he would lose his temper, not infrequently during meetings. We had weekly meetings with him. And I realized in hindsight, there was some arrogance on my part. I was thinking, we need to do everything for the patients. We want to make sure that our priority is the patients. And that is not necessarily the only perspective because, as my wife often reminds me, at the end of the day, we all want to get paid. So that supervisor, of course, was focused not only on patients, but also on the financial bottom line. And to me, at that point, that did not seem important, which of course was something that was not necessarily fair of me to see things that way. So we want to respect the views of other people. We want to respect that where we work also is, at least to an extent, a business. There are financial issues. People want to get paid. An issue that can happen is favoritism. Let's say someone else in your position does less work, is a favorite at work, maybe because her boss and your boss is sexually attracted to her. That's an example. And things like that can happen. So that coworker may call in sick frequently, and you're pretty sure that that person is not sick when she calls in sick, at least a lot of the time. So that can bring up potentially some feelings, and you may be in a situation where, let's say, 50% of the workers in your institution are hard workers, the rest not so hard workers, and they all get the same pay, or different people who are doing different amounts of work in the same position get the same pay. So you may, for example, be upset if you see that colleagues of yours see more patients, let's say, but you don't really feel that the quality of their work is optimal. So their notes may be missing some content, even basic content, like, if you're asked to follow up on a patient that a colleague of yours saw, there's not even in the note, it doesn't even mention what medications the patient was taking at home. So that can bring up some feelings, and the people who do a high quantity of work may be praised for that and even financially receive payment for doing increased quantities of work when the quality may not always be that great. And again, you don't want to be arrogant, and in any bureaucracy, billing is important. People want to get paid. Quantity of work is important. But of course, quality is also important. And you want to balance things as best you can from your perspective. Another fun thing to realize, and it's not always fun, of course, but another interesting thing to realize is that the people you have the most difficulty interacting with are your best teachers. So if you have a lot of trouble interacting with a certain person, there's something good for you to learn from that interaction, from those, even if it's chronic. So you want to respect that. Again, it's not easy, not pleasant necessarily, but the people who you have the most difficulty interacting with, they tend to be your best teachers. And another thing to keep in mind is if you've been abused in your life, let's say physical, sexual, emotional abuse in childhood, you're more vulnerable to being abused at work also. So you really want to keep that in mind, work on yourself. It's not your fault, of course, if you're being abused, but you want to work on your vulnerability to being abused, be in psychotherapy if possible, and minimize, or if possible, not be abused at all. And when you interact with people who really rub you the wrong way, who bring up strong emotions in you, let's say at work, but could be other places, you want to not neglect your feelings. You want to feel your feelings. You want to embrace your feelings, but you don't want to elaborate a big story in your mind about all that. So you want to feel the feelings, and that can be very brief, maybe even just a second. And you don't want to prolong that feeling unnecessarily by making up a story. Oh, this person is a miserable person, did this and that unfairly to me. So that does not seem like something that's going to serve you, in my opinion. You want to feel your emotion, but you don't want to create a story that makes you wallow in that emotion. And you want to be centered. You want to feel your body. Again, you don't want to let your mind run away with a story. You also don't want to take things personally. So you want to realize that if someone acts like a bully, let's say, even if that person's your boss, that the reason they're acting like a bully is fear. And they have their own issues, obviously. And they're human, so you want to respect them also in that sense. Again, I made that mistake of being arrogant in the past. So you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to look down on people, even bullies, people who act inappropriately. We're all human. We're all in the same boat. And again, you don't want to take things personally. If you're walking down a street and someone's screaming at the top of their lungs, you're probably not going to walk up to them and confront them about it. It's not about you. Thank you.